got to bring in our guest. He's ready to go. Matt
Afternoon.
Quatraro, the Kansas City Royals skipper, joining us right now. As you can see, Matt, we're going to have a good time here. How you doing? How are the Royals fan base feeling so far this season as you are moving now to a new organization here? We're talking about the Padres. Their fan base travels quite a bit. KC fans are so damn nice. I mean, I can at least say from my experiences there. How many of you, Matt, have your experiences been with them?
Oh, it's been awesome. The city, the fans, you know, they say as big a town as it's been for the Chiefs when the Royals won, it was even bigger. So that's what we're hoping to get back to, obviously. And so far, it's been nothing but, like you just said, Midwest hospitality. The fans love the team. Just got to get them some wins.
Matt, you guys are in Arizona, correct? You're in Arizona?
Yeah.
Are there Padres fans there that travel? Because Jonesy thinks they don't travel there. They just show up for the game.
Sleeping in their cars.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, we were trying to decide how many of the 45,000 in Anaheim were there for us or for Ohtani, one or the other. We weren't sure.
That's good. That's good.
That's true. How did Shohei treat you guys? Because the thing that stood out to me is him showing off his wheels, which I try and tell maybe a more casual baseball fan sometimes. I go, oh, wait, and in addition to the million unicorn traits that he has, he also beats out ground balls as good as anybody in the game.
Yeah, we've seen that. You know, we saw it this week. We saw the homer. We saw him pitch 7 shutout innings. So we've seen enough of them. But in the past, yeah, I mean, when I was with Tampa, we saw him hit for the cycle and bunt on us and do all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, you guys know he's a generational guy. I mean, you don't see that very often.
Matt, talk to us about the Royals just in general. I know it's been kind of a tough start. It happens. It's early in the year, so we're not even to May yet. What are the positives that you've seen out of the team, and what do you guys need to work on?
You know, you're right. It is early, and the positives there have been a lot of them. You know, the pitchers are throwing more strikes. That's been a huge part of our, point of emphasis for us. They've been throwing a ton of strikes. As far as the hitters go, it's, when guys struggle at the same time, it gets magnified. But what we've seen is that their preparation, the way they stay into the game, the way they're into every pitch is something that's really admirable. Some of these games we've been in till late in the game and they've gotten separated and, they still battle to the end. We got a nice W the other night against the Angels, Angels closer, Quijada, who's a tough guy to face. So more than anything, the positives have been the attitude, coming to win every day, coming to play hard every day. And they've been good teammates. They've been picking each other up. And it's one of the things that I think is really important as you're continuing to build.
Matt, as a young team, how has Perez for the offense and Greinke, the quietest person in the world, been for the perspective, the pitchers and the hitters, and when you have a really young team on both sides with the arms and your defenders?
Yeah, I'll start with Zach, and the thing I didn't know Zach at all prior to this year. Obviously seen him on the other side of the field, but the thing that's impressive about him is he's got 20 years in, and he takes every day like he's a rookie. He's trying to get every pitch he has better every day. He's still putting the work in as far as the conditioning, as far as the scouting the opposition, figuring out how he's going to pitch to him. And right from day one of spring training, when he'd throw a bullpen and guys would just gather around to watch it, so they're learning from his example. He loves to talk through the game. He loves to ask me about in-game decisions. He loves to talk about, pitching techniques with guys, on the staff. And so they eat that up. Salvi, as you guys know, you guys have played against him, and he's always a positive influence. The guy works his butt off, wants to improve. Day one of spring training, he went to our catching coach, Paul Hoover, said, I want to make changes. I know my numbers haven't been good in the past. I want to get better. I want to catch up. I want to be back to the top of the game. And obviously he's always smiling. You can't get the guy down. I mean, he gets pissed when you lose or he has a bad at bat or whatever, but the next day, next at bat, he's right back at it.
You're fresh off the process. What does the managerial process look like for the interviews for you? Because I'm assuming you went through a couple more. I remember you were kind of in the mix a few years. And what does it look like maybe not necessarily just the Royals, if you can't say with the Royals, but like with teams, because you're just fresh off that process.
Yeah, it's a big process. It's fortunately or unfortunately, I went through several of them. So I got used to the process kind of, and more than anything, it's just they're long days. It's a lot of talking. It's you basically meet with all the different departments in an organization that you can think of. Obviously the front office, scouting, player development, strength and conditioning, sports science. In some form or fashion, everyone does basically the same kind of thing. You jump from one room to another, or they come into a room where you are, and you just talk about philosophy, you talk about communication, you talk about players, you talk about how you want to build a staff, what you think your pitching staff, what your philosophy on hitting is, like all those kinds of things. And at the end of the day, those sessions take anywhere from 6 to 8 hours, and some of them are one day, some of them are 2 days, and then you come back for a second round and kind of do it again. You meet with ownership and team presidents, and so it's basically getting to know everybody in the organization, and they get to know you.
Matt, when you go into these interviews, and now that you have the Kansas City job, since you were at the Rays, and the Rays are the model, I want to say, small market team, do the teams pick your brain and say, what do the Rays do differently than what? And then when the Royals hire you, do they say, hey, what can you bring over from the Rays to help the Royals become what the Rays are?
Paul Hoover.
Yeah, I think there's some of that. What's that?
He said Paul Hoover.
They said, I jumped in there. I said, what can you bring over? And you brought Paul Hoover over. That's the only thing you bring from the Rays?
That was my big off-season acquisition, man.
Sorry, go ahead. I shouldn't interrupt the...
No. Some of that, and I think different processes, depending on who you are and how serious a candidate you are. I mean, I think that's one thing that Eric Neander always did a great job for me. When I would go, he would always make sure that it wasn't an interview, like a token interview, to just try to do something like that and just get information on the Rays. Now, in fairness, I could go to interview with any team, and a lot of the stuff that happens behind the scenes, the formulas, the algorithms, all that kind of stuff, that stuff's way, way above me, and really more than anything. And I've been really fortunate with the Rays and with Cleveland. The thing that you bring with you is the people, the way you treat people, the way ownership works, the way the dynamic of the front office and the coaching staff works, the way the camaraderie in the clubhouse, and then obviously compiling talented depth through your system and trying to build for the long term. And that's the kind of stuff that, even here, I mean, it's the kind of thing that JJ and the front office already had in mind. And maybe we just aligned on that philosophy.
Matt, I have a question from a fan here. Garrett says, how many rounds were your interviews? How different was the interview process for each coaching staff position?
Well, each team that I interviewed with was slightly different. So, I mean, I'd say generally 2 to 3 rounds per team, and each coaching position is different, so when we hired, we went in, hired 3 different pitching guys: pitching coach, bullpen coach, and assistant pitching coach. The pitching coach and assistant were fairly similar processes, 2 rounds, I think, if I remember correctly. And they answered philosophical questions, but also, actual pitching questions, breaking down deliveries, breaking down guys on video. And, a lot of this is you do a ton of background on guys, as it was probably done on me and everybody else that was involved in these processes. It's really, do you think you can work with the people? Because sitting in front of an interview, sitting in a boardroom, as you guys know that played, like that's not coaching. It's you can talk a game, or you can actually go and communicate with players that are actually the ones out there putting it on the line every day.
Yeah, I want to talk about communication and the fact that Tito, you were a coach, you were one of the coaches for Tito, then you were the bench coach for Cash. Some people want to know what you learned from them. That's kind of the PC answer. I want to know how much you were involved in the practical joking, and did you, if they did a little forensics testing, was your fingerprints on the motorcycle that got stolen from Tito?
Cashy doesn't need any help with that stuff, man. You guys know him. You guys have been around him. What what I learned from those guys, I cannot do the same thing they do. I mean, they keep that clubhouse about as light as it can possibly be because of their big personalities, and they never take a day off from the practical joking, man. I mean, we have to do it slightly differently, but those guys, that is what it is. To me, the magic that happens with those guys is that they keep it light regardless, and they have the ability to connect with players. Players respect them for obviously different reasons, but and the other thing we talked about a minute ago is that neither of those guys are micromanagers. You hire good people to coach the players. The people that are the content that they have is the knowledge of the content they have is off the charts, and they don't micromanage. They let them do their jobs. They know they're going to be prepared, and that breeds a lot of content.
Matt, was one of your things you learned from Kevin Cash and Tito when Vinny Pasquantino gets on base? Was that one of your personal practical jokes where you said we're going to take a Sasquatch and have him walk in the outfield as a practical joke on Vinny, or that come from the Royals PR? Because it's kind of awesome if you think about it.
Yeah. I honestly, they had to point it out to me because you're not looking up over the left field fence when somebody gets on base, but that is pretty cool. I mean, it's a pretty unique nickname, and he does kind of walk like that guy, so that is pretty cool.
Wait. So now we got to know: is he hairy like a Sasquatch? Is that?
I don't think. You know what? It's early in the year. I don't think he is, but I'll check for you, and I'll get back to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, let us know.
Perfect.
Hey, Matt, I've got a tie-in from your old ball club to this one. There's a player that you coach who should sign for massive money and just be there for life. You had Wander Franco, who got a massive extension from a team that doesn't usually spend a ton. There's a guy named Bobby Witt that you're managing every day. So where are the similarities, and when does he sign for life?
Yeah, good question. The similarities are there in that they can change the game in a lot of ways, man. They obviously Wander's a switch hitter, but Bobby, elite speed, for his body type, already showing big power, uses the whole field, plays a premium position. He's only going to get better at it. He just needs game reps at this level. But as far as the contract, that's way, way above my decision making. But I know it's something they've discussed, and I think that obviously any team would want to lock up Bobby long term.
Yeah, so breaking news here, they're going to want to lock up Bobby. Thank you for that. We appreciate that. We're always about locking people up. But one of the things we talked about on this show when we had Phil Nevin on, okay, we said, could Phil Nevin beat Gabe Kepler in a fight? I just need a yes or no. Who's going to win in a fight?
So we'd have to set what kind of fight, where are they? What time of night is it? Who's, all that kind of stuff, man. You got to qualify that a little bit.
Okay. Well, then I really didn't care who you thought. Could you beat Gabe Kepler in a fight?
No.
No? That's fine. I knew you were going to say that because you're a humble guy. I've seen you in the weight room. You're more of a treadmill guy than a bicep curl guy. But what I need from you, Q, what manager could you beat in a fight? Of the other 29.
Tito.
Tito might have another heart attack though if he gets out there and fights.
I wouldn't want to fight him, but I think I would take my chances.
Okay, that's fair because he's going to come on later.
Wait, why does everybody want to fight Gabe? Eric, why does everybody want to fight Gabe?
I don't know. Okay,
Kratzy seems to be infatuated with it.
I'm on it. I'm buying a ticket to it. I'm buying a ticket to it.
Why is this all about fighting? I thought this was a fun show.
Yeah.
There's fighting with fun, too.
Yeah, there's drama. There's a little bit of drama. On that topic, actually, have you spoken to your pitchers about sticky stuff since Scherzer's incident and even Herman as well? I mean, you've got a lot of young pitchers. They probably have questions, too, like, am I just going to be randomly targeted as well?
Completely coincidentally, that day, that Scherzer got caught, or whatever the right terminology is, we had met with the pitchers earlier that day, just to make sure they understood the ramifications and exactly what the rules were. So yes, we have had that meeting.
How did it go? Did they feel like
Great.
reassured afterward? Like what do you talk to them about? Because I know we've had probably 5-6 pitchers on since it happened, and we actually had Scherzer on 2 days before, and he said this is going to be a problem because he said rosin sticky. And it was crazy that 2 days later all of that happens. And we've had pitchers on since then, and they're like, okay, you're asking him to use alcohol in front of an official. He does. It makes it stickier, then it's his fault. So it was just a weird situation, and no one wants their pitcher to get caught in that spot and lose him for 2 starts.
Oh, absolutely. I think that was our biggest thing, making sure they understood that even if it is just rosin, it can get to a point where it's not deemed legal. And the other part is we wanted them to understand from a team standpoint that if they get busted, then, you don't, any suspension, you don't get to fill that roster spot. So you're playing a man down for those 10 days. So those were our biggest points to make sure they understood that.
Matt, I wanted to ask you this. You've been a baseball lifer, so standing on the line, national anthem. You're the manager, not the bench coach, not one of the normal coaches that run out there. You're called first before everybody. The manager's called first. What's the emotions like when you're sitting there like, this is my team. It's you, the leadoff hitter. You're not way down there next to guy. You're not next to the bullpen catcher. Or the trainer. You're next to the leadoff hitter, next to the other manager in the center of the diamond. How's that of emotions as the manager?
Yeah, it was humbling, to be honest. It's one of those things you don't really know how you're going to feel till you get out there. Like you said, like my first year in the big leagues as a coach was really emotional. I had just lost my dad right before that, so he didn't get to be there for opening day my first year. So obviously every opening day I stand out there, I think about him every day, quite honestly. But to have family in the stands and be out there and managing against Rocco that day was kind of cool too. We were former teammates and worked together in Tampa, so there were a lot of really cool things that I definitely did not take for granted. But more than anything, it was humbling.
How was the first week and a half of the season for you? You land a dream job as a manager in the bigs, and then you have to sit out. I don't know what the exact dates were. I was trying to look it up, with a positive COVID test. And I remember hearing one of your interviews, and I think you were feeling okay. So it has to be massively frustrated because it's not really much of a story. You don't hear about it much anymore. There hasn't been a player that has had to sit out with it, I think, in a while now. So that must have been an absolute blast for you, getting your dream job and then being forced to sit.
I know, 5 days. Yeah, fortunately, it was just 5 days now instead of when it was 10 or 14 and all that kind of stuff. And I obviously was very lucky that I didn't have symptoms or very mild symptoms. So that made it even more frustrating, because really it was right after that opening weekend where we had a ton of people in town, and when they all left and started getting back to where they were going, they were calling saying, hey, we tested positive, we don't feel well, whatever. And then we're about to get on a flight to San Francisco. And I just didn't want to be the guy that made, have the whole team get it. So we tested, my wife and I tested, and we both had it. Fortunately, our kids didn't get it. So that was nice. But yeah, well, it was just bizarre. You want to get in the rhythm. You want to be there with your guys. Obviously I don't have a lot of reps under my belt yet. So every game that you miss was even more frustrating. But the guys did a great job. We were in communication all day, before the games, after the games, and just sitting there watching as a fan. The one thing I learned is, with the delay on TV, I couldn't keep my phone near me because the MLB app updated before it would happen on TV. And I didn't want to, that was kind of an interesting thing. That was frustrating too, where people send you a text when something happens and you hadn't even seen it happen yet. So I learned a little bit that way too.
That sucks. That sucks.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what you went through sitting there grinding. You're rooting for your boys and you're looking on your phone and watching on TV. Yeah, this is not how you want to draw up your first week as a big league manager.
No, it definitely wasn't. But I'm glad to be back.
Well, welcome back. Well, you're well into it now. Brady Singer, guy was great the second half of last year, went to the WBC, has not gotten off to a great start. Do you think the WBC affected his preparation, and what will it take for him to get back to work? Because second half, he was one of the best pitchers in the American League. So what will it take for him to get back to that point? And again, do you think the WBC had anything to do with this?
I think from a starting pitcher standpoint, it definitely had something to do with it because, I think he may have pitched 2 innings, something like that, so he pitched 2 innings before he left. Then when he left, and you understand why. I completely understand why he didn't pitch. His first outing wasn't great. And that's a win at all cost environment there. So they're going to go with who they think gives them the best chance on that night. I mean, it's completely understandable. And to Brady's credit, he did everything he could. He threw his bullpens and I think maybe even had some guys stand in on him. But it's not the same as getting your normal buildup of, you go 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, So he came back. He had maybe 2 outings in spring training when he came back, got to 4 innings, but that gradual buildup just wasn't there. Now, in fairness, his first start of the year against the Blue Jays, he came out 94, 96, really pounded the zone, had a great outing against Toronto, and then has kind of settled into what we expect as far as how the stuff looks. He faced a really, really good Braves team in his second start. Those guys can really swing it. I'm not worried about where he is at all. I think he's gonna bounce into what we think, expect of him. He's a competitor above everything else. This guy's extremely competitive, and I know he's going to keep pushing to get better.
Did you call Mark DeRosa and say, put my damn guy in the game? He needs innings. Let's go. Put my guy in the game. I need him to get ready for starts.
I can't imagine the communication that him and Pettit and those guys had. I mean, they're talking to every pitching coach and every coach and every team through that thing. I mean, that must have been some kind of process. But I mean, I know we wanted our pitching coach, Brian Sweeney. He was talking to Andy Pettit, and I know they communicated. They knew what might have happened or what the plan could have been, but they just had other options and they went with them. And again, totally understandable.
How many days off are you going to give Salvi in 1 month? Are you going to give him 2 days off, or are you going to try to work him in 5 days off? Because I've been seeing his playing time is a little bit different than what, maybe he's used to. And is that a conversation that you've had with him? Absolutely
different. But yes, he's involved in every aspect of the decision-making with his career. How many days, it depends on the schedule. But, we've had a good run of lefties we've faced too. So when he hasn't caught, he's DH'd. When he hasn't, he's only not played in 1 game. So it's not like that much different from when you were here, playing as his backup. It's, but the difference is MJ is backing him up and he plays right field every day when he's not catching. So it's a little bit different scenario. But yeah, Salvi's involved in that conversation as we plan out the week or the road trip or whatever it is.
AJ and Kratz are jealous of Melendez anyway. They wanted to be a right fielder and a catcher. That sounds like an absolute blast.
Hell no.
I just wanted to play.
Matt,
put me somewhere.
Matt, you're a catcher. How boring would right field be? That would be the worst. The outfield would be the worst job in the world, dude. You're standing out there, you might not get 1 ball hit to you. I'd be like, this sucks. Someone send me a beer down here. Let's go.
I was a bullpen catcher. I was not a catcher.
Me too. That's why we hit it off. Me too, Q. I was a bullpen catcher.
Hell yeah. I love that. Hey, Matt, this was awesome. Really appreciate you joining us, giving us some insight, and good luck on the trip.
Thanks, guys. This was fun. I appreciate the invite.